wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't know who I am.
No matter what happens in life, that the sun will always, rise and set the same way.
As you can tell, I love using my language. And I love seeing how language can really change the world. Build our community, because that's what makes us strong.
Black in Denver is an art-based research project. I've called it ethnography, I've called it a portrait and interview series, I've even called it an ode to a community of people. But the work takes a look at identity. It investigates identity and what it means to be you and what makes you you and how you make up a collective. It's all about how we're interconnected to one another. It takes a look at a community using the self. So I put myself in the community to understand what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing. So it's a lot of listening to understand. I hold space for my participants to share who they are in a very safe space, a way for them to open up and be vulnerable and be authentic. So yeah, Black in Denver is, a research project. It's a portrait and interview series. It's visual art. It's a number of things.
To be Esther means to laugh a lot, to walk into a room and try to bring some positive light into the room.
I want to know more than I can know. I want to do more than I can do.
And be you. Don't let anybody else define that.
Blackness defines culture and style in every city. It just does.
I think we're not a monolith, obviously. I think that there are so many different layers to every Black experience that it just continues to grow and evolve.
I think it was Susie Q who said in her Black in Denver interview that was in the museum exhibit that being Black in Denver is like being a fish in the desert, and finding other Black people is like finding your water.
Who am I? I am a strong, powerful, energetic, happy, playful person who celebrates every day.
We have several levels of healing. So we have our generational healing for, like me personally, and then we have the collective whole as the Black community. And so we take on different emotions and frequencies from our ancestors.
When it comes to the colors, because color theory is just really interesting to me in general. And it took me a while to get to the place where I realized that, I'm using the color spectrum because I want to talk about the nuance in Blackness. I want to talk about the diversity in Blackness. And that's what that color spectrum is supposed to represent, is the fact that we are so many different things. Our community is so vast, but we have been painted with one brush by the media for a very long time. A part of my process is conversation. We sit down and have a one-on-one intimate conversation before we even take the photo. So that's what allows me to really connect with them through photography. I get them to open up, they get comfortable. I take a photo, and I take a lot of photos actually. And then I look for their eyes, because what I'm trying to do with my work is for you to see your reflection in them, because we're all connected, right? And that's what I really want my photos to do, is I want them to see you and I want you to see them. I really think that Blackness is my essence, right? It is the embodiment of who I am. So I would say my art is my Blackness. Whatever I do within this Black body is my Blackness. How I show up is my Blackness. I think that the word Black, and when it comes to race, I think about it as a social construct. So when we can get past the idea that, this is something that was created for us, and we can get deeper into the fact that what it means to be Black is something much deeper, that it's this Blackness, that it's how I express myself. That's what it means to me. And for me personally, I would say it means to be a nerd. Like, it means to be extremely curious. It means to be someone who's willing to step into the unknown and learn something new, right? That's what makes me me, and unique to everyone else.
Blackness has a tendency to be
not necessarily more united, but I guess like more communal.
My name is Esther Lee Leach, and I'm from the beautiful island of St. Lucia. I grew up there. You walk into a room, and that's the first thing people see. They don't see Esther like they did like in another country. They just see, oh, this is this Black woman. And I'm going to put all of my stereotypes and prejudices on her before she even opens her mouth, tells me who she is, and shows me who she is. So I kind of had to learn to embrace that. I'm a Black immigrant. I'm going to be a Black immigrant. I'm going to show up with my huge afro and take over the room.
I think it can be really difficult, and I think it can be really easy to be tokenized. But I think for me, it's also kind of tricky because when I was growing up, and even now navigating my identity as an adult, there are certain things where, like, I'm in spaces and I love talking about hip hop and fashion and all those things, but then I also have a very strong African identity. And sometimes people don't really understand. They're like, oh, you talk weird, or like, why do you care about, these things that don't really make sense to an American who is 5 generations from 5 Points or something. And so I think for me, being Black in Denver is like that experience of being that fish in the desert, but then also like sometimes looking around and being like, I don't fully fit into this school of fish either sometimes.
We're forced to spend a lot of time with our Blackness, whatever that means to the person forcing you into that paradigm, or whatever it means to you. We don't get to walk out of the house as anyone else but who we are every day. And for most of us, we're judged before we ever open our mouths because of the color of our skin or our features. It's interesting to discover, as you travel around the country, what it means to be Black in different places. Because it does mean something to different people in different places. There's an expectation, there's a type.
But just being Black in general, no matter where you're at, I don't care if you're here in the States or if you're in South America or if you're in London or Canada, trauma is something that goes strongly within the narrative of Blackness. And I think unpacking trauma and redefining that is helping to get to this whole collective consciousness.
For me, liberation, I think a liberation of the mind and of the body, specifically the Black body, and not taking the homogenous view of the dominant culture as a framework of being. I think Black liberation specifically is, allowing ourselves to reveal our natural tresses, whether none, or, the diverse array that we have. Authentically, I think that our voices speak, our bodies move differently.
I own Smith & Cannon's ice cream and coffee shop in Denver, Colorado. We're at York and Colfax. We've been there for 3 years. I guess I've always thought that entrepreneurialism was maybe one of the ways that a Black person in this country could circumvent some of the built-in stigmas and typing that occurs with being an employee. So it was kind of surprising to me to get here and have so many Black people kind of say, oh my gosh, congratulations, or really? This is owned by a Black person?
The Salon song, Don't Touch My Hair, is a perfect example of like a microaggression. Like people want to explore who you are through making assumptions or touching you or all these different ideas. So I feel like in Denver, because there's so few representation of Blackness, we're more of an idea. And because we're more of an idea to, I guess, Eurocentric America, we have a tendency to experience microaggressions on a more regular basis. So we have a tendency to have to address, I guess, like stereotypes and stigmas that are put onto us. And through those stereotypes and stigmas, we're kind of experiencing, I don't know, in conversation space, we'll experience like, oh, do you all do this or do that, assumptions.
You think about this fact that Black people, our history began as we were not people in this country. We were tools, we were property, we were symbols of wealth. We weren't people, we were commodities. And so that's horrible to have that type of mindset pushed on you. Then, as we rejected that, began to find ways to move away from that, you know, the effects of that are still far-reaching, because strife that our grandmothers went through, it's in our DNA. But the wisdom that they also have for us is in our DNA. And so I like to balance this experience in people's mind to say, yes, intergenerational trauma is a real thing. The microaggressive ways that our society is also adds to that. And so we have no choice but to go inside. We have no choice but to come together and find kindred that can stand with us. And in doing this, you know, we're changing the molds. You know, every time we reject something that is inequitable, you know, we're breaking the cycle.
When I ask people the question, who are you? Sometimes the response I hear is, I'm a Black man or I'm a Black woman. And I let that space, allow that to like be the answer for folks to think beyond that, right? Because I know that it's something that I've been assigned. And I think within the media, that's sometimes all we think about is like, I am this and there's nothing else there. But we are so many different things. I am many things. And because I am many things, I'm always evolving and changing, because I am many things, I have a lot of different communities, right, that I exist in. So I'm constantly moving between the communities that make up my identity.
I only knew how to be Black like me, and I've never ever worried about what that meant to somebody else. And you only discover what it means to somebody else when you really focus on just being you.
A lot of times Congolese people will say like, "Ndi na motema na yo," which basically means like, believe in your own heart. And sort of the idea is to follow the compass that your spirit is leading you toward.
To be here in Denver, to me, means like showing up as my full self. And I've never really had to do that in America before. And I'm trying to explain from the perspective of an immigrant, because I am a Black immigrant. So for the first time, I sort of had to confront that, like, this is my Black skin. Like, growing up in the Caribbean, you don't even think about it, you just are. Do you know what I mean? We have so many Black people around us, all different mixtures and colors and shapes. So you just wake up thinking, I'm Esther. There's no reason to think about your race. And I like that I grew up that way. There was no sort of burden because of my race. And I came to America and Denver, and suddenly it's like, that's what people see first.
All you gotta do is just show up, because your presence, Black people's presence, particularly in a white environment, makes you very different, and you're noticed, and you change when you come into a room, you change the room. You know, people notice, because a lot of us, particularly Black people, we don't have somebody to really talk to on a real level about the things that we are kind of afraid to talk about. And so if you find somebody and you can do that, that opens up a lot of possibilities for yourself.
It's just that here I am, and how do I navigate, and what do I do, and what do I believe? So whether I'm in Denver or wherever I am, it's being comfortable with being me. I stop and think, what can I celebrate today? And then something automatically pops into my head, which makes a shift in my thoughts and attitude. So that's why I celebrate every day.
The power of authenticity is me coming in here with a clean face and understanding that it's that transparency will allow everything that you are passionate about, everything that you do care about, that comes across genuinely. And I think authenticity is it is one of my core values now, being raised as a chameleon, army brat, traveling the world, trying to fit in with everything and everyone. You know, I realized that authentically that kind of rubbed against me the wrong way.
I'm hopeful that at some point we will not listen to the messages that tell us we're less than. We will listen to our message, knowing from whence we come, that we are strong and all the things that they tell us we're not.
So Il7 is an artist name that I first started going by years ago, and that had so much to do with kind of my spiritual journey. Another name that I go by is Acuna Black. Acuna Black was really kind of a self-discovery of me going through my own lineage of being like an Afro-Latino. My dad's side of the family being from Haiti, my mom's side of the family being from Mexico. I've utilized, I feel like, my art to like just kind of tell my own story, but also kind of highlight some of the struggles that we've all gone through as people of color.
I moved here 6 years ago, and I just saw something really unique about Denver's Black community. First, there wasn't many of us, right? But I also noticed a lot of people just, something unique and powerful, and that thing was people being themselves. And I really wanted to capture that and understand what I was seeing, what I was experiencing, and document this beautiful community that I had discovered here. I always say I'm an old soul in a body. And then I get really like deep with it and say my body will one day become the earth. So I know that I'm a soul, right? I know that I am many things, and my community and the community that I've created allows me to be all of those things. I know that I'm ever changing.
That's one of the things about being Black in Denver, is that it's always kind of redefining itself because there isn't a strong community. So like there's more openness to kind of explore what that is. And I think that this project kind of highlights that. Like we're kind of a little different, a little quirky, a little not like anywhere else.
Having healthy relationships, having a grounded sense of self and self-worth are all the things that Blacks suffer with. And of course it is due to a lot of the way we're socialized. It is due to inequity that we are constantly faced with. And over time, that affects your being, your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being, how you show up emotionally.
Being Black in Denver is, it's an interesting thing because it's not like anywhere else. It's the Wild West, meaning that it's open and there's not like a set narrative necessarily in Denver, where if you go to like New York or if you go to LA, there's already an expectation of how you should move, how you should act. I feel like Denver is kind of undefined in a variety of different ways. So because it's undefined, you as a creator can create the reality that you want to exist in within the city in a variety of different ways. And as long as you don't get overcome with all these little microaggressions or stigmas that people put onto you, you can actually define the reality of what Denver is for yourself.
Right away, I wanted to form a community. I'm like, how do I sort of plant myself in this community that does not have many Black people at all? How do I become a presence there? How do I create change there? And how do I bring other people who look like me into the community? And that's why I started my magazine, Cherry Creek Fashion, and it has been successful in doing that. Now people see me as a face of Cherry Creek, and they feel comfortable saying, well, Esther's there, she lives there, she works there, well, I can be there too. So representation matters so very much, especially to kids. Like I have a 5-year-old now, and you know the same phrase, if you can't see it, you don't think you can be it. Like when I see, oh my God, Michelle Obama on the national stage, I'm like, well, I can do that too. It just encourages you to want to do more and know that you can be that person as well. And also, I love You know, normally my hair's in a huge afro, and I love walking around Cherry Creek because any other Black person visiting, I want them to know that that's their community too.
My art is definitely a way to help other Black people heal. I think that I allow Black people and to the space to cry and to laugh and to question these, you know, these things that are a part of our culture that form or structure the way we respond to our environments. I think for me, I've removed myself more and more from the work and look at my surroundings as my subject.
I own Urban Sanctuary, which is a wellness and health center. We do yoga and healing work. So I put together programs to help the BIPOC community. So my sessions, all BIPOC individuals can come and see me, and it's on a sliding scale. So having BIPOC-only spaces is just being in that community where you don't feel like you stand out. You don't feel like everybody's looking at you. You don't feel out of place. So I practice yoga in Fort Collins and around Denver, and that's the one thing that I noticed is I was the only Black person in class. And you do feel it. You do see it. People interact with you differently. So just to have a BIPOC class only just allows people to just settle in, to be themselves, to connect with the teacher, to connect with their body on a level that feels familiar to them.
Here, in looking at it, it's very spread out, very disconnected. But when we connect, magic happens. That's how I feel.
We're always becoming, right? I think it's an ever-evolving journey to self. And I think that this project has helped me put me on a path to where I'm supposed to be going, but I think that I'm still walking that path. My purpose here is to tell stories. My purpose here is to lift up narratives of this community. It is to embrace and disrupt harmful stereotypes.
I would say I'm a unique Denver native, as every person breathing is unique in their ways. And who I am right now is a culmination of experience and education and love.
And I think in America, the sad part has been that like the roles of Black people have basically been like either you're some sort of freedom fighter like MLK, or you're an athlete, or you're a rapper or musician, or you're, I don't know what else. Maybe those are like the main ones. And so I think that for people to understand that like there is a plurality of Blackness, and I meet Black people all the time where I'm like, we have an understanding, and I love that. And there's so many things about you that I will never understand, and I think that's really beautiful.
There's no such thing as can't. And I really do believe that. I may not be able to do it that way. However, I can figure out a way to do it. And saying can't disempowers. And it's important for me to stay strong in my powerful. I enjoy being a strong, powerful Black woman.
We're people who are survivors. We know how to struggle and how to overcome, make do out of nothing. And that's a huge lesson that a lot of people have to learn. Our biggest challenge today is how to thrive in the midst of that instead of just surviving. In Denver, Denver is a real challenge. There's a lot of challenges for us as a people, but we're overcoming, and we have achieved far greater than our numbers.
I resent that as African people brought to this country, that we, more than any other culture, have been so deprived of who we are. We are powerful people. We're strong, intelligent people. But we were deprived of our history. We've been deprived of our language. We didn't all speak the same language when we came here. We've been deprived of everything that made us us.
I think that my work is very much exploring sanctuary and home as a means of foundation, thinking about belonging, specifically, and being safe. And what does that look like? Being Black in Denver has allowed me to shed that skin, literally, and find those moments that I appreciate myself, that I appreciate my culture, that I connect to my culture, I add to my culture.
It's much bigger than me. It is a community project, and that's why I love participatory art and art that involves people and their voices.
I'll share the words that I shared with them. Street alchemy. Our street lights came on while holding down this progress of evolution. The young bloods of Yahweh created a new reality. While refusing to be casualty, actually alchemy. Converted pain into platinum, y'all call it rapping, the key for the shackles we were trapped in. Manifestation gained traction, we put love into action and stopped acting and started a chain reaction. Hanging with stars, moonwalking like Michael Jackson. Filter the old ideas into new realities. Yah will never lose. Yahshua light the fuse. Hard life as a muse. Turn pain into platinum. That's called alchemy in action.